What if I told you that you're constantly being judged and evaluated by signals you don't even realize you're sending? While you carefully focus on the words you choose, the qualifications you present, and the logical arguments you construct, there's a completely different conversation happening subconsciously, a silent language that can be sabotaging your best efforts or, when mastered, transforming you into someone magnetically trustworthy. The inconvenient truth that communication experts rarely admit is this: up to 93% of human communication has nothing to do with the words that come out of your mouth, your gestures, your posture, the timing of your gaze. Even the way you breathe, all of these are conveying information about your trustworthiness, competence, and true intentions in ways your conscious mind can't even imagine. And here's the most disturbing part. People who ignore these silent signals often find that, no matter how qualified they are or how honest their intentions, they continue to struggle to gain trust and influence in their personal and professional lives. But there are individuals who seem to naturally inspire instant trust, who can build deep connections in minutes, and who navigate complex social situations with almost supernatural ease. In the next few minutes, you'll discover exactly how they do it, and more importantly, how you can start doing the same today. There's a crucial moment that happens in the first 3 seconds of any human encounter, a process so rapid and unconscious that most people don't even realize it's happening. The instantaneous formation of impressions based on nonverbal cues that will determine the course of the entire future interaction, while our conscious mind is still processing basic information like name and context. Our primitive brain has already performed the complex assessment of trustworthiness, competence, and intentions based on micro-expressions that last fractions of a second. Paul Ekman, a pioneer in facial expression research, discovered that these micro-expressions, involuntary facial movements that reveal genuine emotions, are universal across cultures and impossible to consciously control once they arise. A person might be saying "nice to meet you" with a seemingly warm smile, but if a micro-expression of discomfort or distrust has crossed their face, in the preceding milliseconds, the observer will pick up on this incongruity at a subconscious level. This explains why some people seem immediately fake even when we can't articulate exactly what bothers us about them. The difference between a genuine smile and a forced smile lies in such subtle details that only recently has neuroscience begun to fully understand its mechanics and psychological impact. A true smile, known as a Duchenne smile, involves not only the muscles around the mouth but also the muscles around the eyes, creating those characteristic small wrinkles that signal authentic joy. When someone produces this type of smile, it triggers a neurological response in the observer that activates neural mirrors and releases oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding. Conversely, an open posture, relaxed shoulders, uncrossed arms, palms visible subconsciously communicates that the person harbors no hidden threats and is receptive to interaction. These evolutionary signals exist because our ancestors needed to make quick assessments of whether strangers represented danger or an opportunity for cooperation. A person who keeps their arms crossed or hides their hands may simply be feeling cold, but their primitive brain interprets these gestures as signs that something may be hidden. The power of eye contact in establishing trust is simultaneously more complex and more direct than most people realize. There's an optimal window of gaze duration, approximately 3 to 5 seconds, that signals interest and trust without crossing the line into intimidation or discomfort. Too little eye contact suggests insecurity, dishonesty, or disinterest, while too much staring can be interpreted as aggression or socially inappropriate behavior. But it's not just the duration that matters. The direction of the gaze reveals internal cognitive processes that attentive observers can decipher. When someone looks up and to the right while answering a question, they may be accessing constructive visual memories, potentially fabricating information, while looking up and to the left suggests accessing real visual memories. These nuances of eye language are so revealing that criminal investigators and professional negotiators spend years learning to interpret them accurately, recognizing that the eyes truly can be windows to the soul when you know how to read the signals they convey. There's a fascinating psychological phenomenon that operates completely below the threshold of consciousness and may account for up to 60% of the success of any social interaction. The unconscious mirroring of body movements between people who are building genuine rapport. When two people begin to develop mutual trust, their bodies naturally begin to synchronize. They assume similar postures, adopt similar breathing rhythms, and even begin to subtly mimic each other's gestures without realizing it. This mirroring process is so powerful that researchers have found that when we intentionally and discreetly mimic someone's posture, we can significantly increase the likelihood that they will trust us and accept our suggestions. This isn't gross manipulation, it's a conscious application of an evolutionary mechanism that exists because human groups that could synchronize behaviors were more likely to survive and thrive. When you observe a couple who have been together for decades, you'll often see them walking in step, gesturing similarly, and even developing similar facial expressions over the years. The human voice carries layers of information that go far beyond the words being spoken, conveying emotional states, levels of trust, and even clues about honesty through variations so subtle that only spectroscopic analysis can fully detect them. A deeper tone of voice generally conveys authority and trustworthiness, so much so that politicians and executives often undergo vocal training to deepen their register, while variations in pitch can reveal nervousness, enthusiasm, or attempts at deception. Speech rate is equally revealing. People who speak too quickly may seem nervous or trying to hide something, while an excessively slow pace can be interpreted as condescension or a lack of confidence in one's material. But the most subtle and powerful element may be volume and projection. People who speak with adequate volume and clear projection convey inner confidence, while those who mumble or speak to softly force others to make an extra effort to hear them, creating an unbalanced power dynamic. There's also the phenomenon of vocal fry, that cracked quality in the voice that's become common among young people, which can subconsciously undermine perceptions of competence and authority, regardless of a person's actual age or experience. Managing personal space is a complex social dance that reveals and influences trust levels in a deeply instinctive way. Each person carries around them an invisible bubble of personal space, the size of which varies based on cultural, relational, and situational factors. When someone allows you into their intimate zone approximately 18 inches, they are communicating a significant level of trust and comfort. But the real mastery lies in calibrating this proximity so that it feels natural and respectful, not invasive or presumptuous. People skilled at building trust can gradually decrease physical distance throughout a conversation, always observing signs of comfort or discomfort in the other. There's also the phenomenon of blocking, when someone unconsciously places objects, briefcase, a cup of coffee, even their own arms, between themselves and another person, signaling psychological discomfort or a desire to maintain distance. Recognizing these signals allows you to adjust your approach in real time, respecting the other person's need for space while building trust through demonstrating social sensitivity and emotional intelligence. The human body is incapable of lying completely, and when there's a disconnect between what someone is saying and what they're actually feeling, warning signs begin to leak through unconscious behaviors that attentive observers can instantly detect. Excessive fidgeting, touching the face, playing with objects, repetitive hand movements often indicates internal discomfort or an attempt to control oneself under pressure. Defensive gestures such as crossing the arms, partially turning the body away, or creating physical barriers with objects reveal psychological resistance or a desire for protection. But the most telling sign is incongruence, when facial expressions don't match the tone of voice, when gestures contradict words, or when the timing between speech and body movement seems out of sync. A person might say, "I'm very happy to help," while their shoulders are tense, their jaw clenched, and their hands clenched, creating a dissonance that generates immediate distrust in the observer, even if they can't articulate exactly what's bothering them. Interpreting nonverbal cues becomes exponentially more complex in multicultural contexts, where gestures considered respectful in one culture can be deeply offensive in another. Direct eye contact, revered as a sign of honesty in Western cultures, can be interpreted as disrespect or aggression in many Asian and African cultures. Comfortable physical proximity varies dramatically. Mediterranean and Latin American people often stand much closer during conversations than Nordic or Japanese people would feel comfortable with. Seemingly universal gestures like waving or pointing have completely different meanings in different regions of the world. This cultural complexity creates traps where well-intentioned people inadvertently undermine trust through nonverbal misunderstandings. The solution is not to memorize every possible cultural nuance, but to develop sensitivity to observe others' reactions and adjust behavior in real time based on the feedback you receive. When words and body language convey conflicting messages, the human brain experiences cognitive discomfort that automatically reduces trust and credibility. If someone says, "I'm absolutely certain about this," while nodding almost imperceptibly, or states, "I'm totally relaxed," with visibly tense muscles, observers pick up on this incongruity even without being able to consciously identify what's bothering them. This phenomenon explains why some people appear fake regardless of what they say. There's a fundamental disharmony between their verbal and nonverbal communication channels. In professional contexts, this incongruity can destroy negotiations, undermine presentations, and damage leadership relationships. The irony is that trying to over-control body language often worsens the problem, creating rigidity and artificiality that are even more detectable. The solution is to develop inner authenticity and emotional alignment so that external signals naturally reflect genuine internal states. The difference between people who naturally inspire trust and those who struggle to establish meaningful connections often lies in specific techniques that can be learned and consciously practiced until they become second nature. Start with the 3-anchor rule. Maintain appropriate eye contact, consciously relax your shoulder muscles, and position your hands visibly and openly. When meeting someone new, practice what psychologists call calibrated genuine interest. Ask a specific question about something they mentioned and really listen to the answer, allowing your natural curiosity to be reflected in your body posture. Lean slightly toward the person when they speak. Use subtle nods to show you're following along, and discreetly mirror their emotional energy without overdoing it. A powerful technique is the intentional pause before answering important questions. This demonstrates that you're genuinely processing what's been said, rather than simply waiting your turn to speak, and creates an impression of thoughtfulness and consideration that quickly builds trust. Developing the ability to read others' silent cues transforms your communication effectiveness and your ability to respond to the unexpressed emotional needs of those around you. Observe clusters of behavior rather than isolated signals. A person might cross their arms because of the cold, but if they simultaneously recoil slightly, avoid eye contact, and their voice rises a notch, you're seeing resistance or genuine discomfort. Learn to distinguish between situational nervousness, which diminishes as a person becomes more comfortable, and signs of deception or distrust, which often intensify when pressured. Practice empathic listening. Notice not just what is being said, but how it is being said. What emotions are leaking through their tone of voice and body language? When you can sense that someone is feeling insecure or defensive, you can adjust your approach to be more reassuring, creating an environment where the person feels safer to be authentic and open. Self-awareness is perhaps the most critical skill in developing a confident presence, because you can't project authenticity while disconnected from your own internal emotional state. Develop the habit of doing regular body check-ins. How are my shoulders feeling? Is my breathing shallow or deep? What emotion am I really feeling right now? When you're nervous or uncomfortable, but trying to appear confident, this incongruence manifests itself in dozens of microsignals that others subconsciously detect. Instead of trying to mask nervousness, learn emotional regulation techniques, deep, mindful breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and mental reframing that transforms anxiety into excitement. The most powerful practice is calibrated authenticity, being genuine about your emotion state without overwhelming others with context and appropriate intensity. This means you can acknowledge nervousness in a way that demonstrates humility and humanity, rather than trying to project a false confidence that everyone can see through. Artificial intelligence can already detect human micro-expressions with superior accuracy to most trained experts, and this technology is rapidly integrating into professional environments in ways that will fundamentally transform how trust is assessed and built. As systems in job interviews analyze speech patterns, eye movements, and posture variations to create trustworthiness scores that influence hiring decisions. Corporate video conferencing platforms are beginning to incorporate real-time engagement analytics, measuring whether participants are genuinely attentive or merely feigning interest. This evolution creates a paradoxical reality. As machines become more adept at deciphering authentic human signals, people may feel pressured to perform authenticity in an even more calculated way. The emerging challenge is not to outwit AI systems which become more sophisticated daily, but to develop genuine presence that translates consistently across any means or analytical technology. Digital communication has created new languages of trust that operate through technological substitutes for traditional nonverbal cues. Emojis have become sophisticated tools for communicating emotional nuances that plain text cannot convey, but their inappropriate use can undermine professional credibility. In video calls, elements such as audio quality, camera stability, and even background choices convey messages about competence and attention to detail. The speed of response to messages, the use of punctuation, and the formality of language create impressions of trustworthiness in purely digital relationships. People who master these new forms of digital nonverbal communication build trust more quickly in remote environments, while those who neglect these cues often struggle to establish meaningful connections even when their content is valuable. The ability to read the room now includes interpreting signals such as chat participation patterns, response timing, and even filter or avatar choices. The future belongs to those who can seamlessly navigate in person and digital communication, maintaining authenticity and building trust across any medium or technology. This requires developing a presence intelligence that transcends specific channels, the ability to project competence, warmth, and trustworthiness regardless of whether you're face-to-face, on a video call, or interacting via text. Practices like mindfulness and self-regulation become even more valuable because authentic emotions translate across any medium, while attempts at manipulation become more easily detectable as analytics technologies advance. The truly future-ready person not only masters specific body language or digital communication techniques, but also develops a foundation of personal integrity and emotional intelligence that naturally manifests in trust and genuine human connection. Regardless of how technology evolves, their ability to form meaningful relationships will depend not on mastering specific tools, but on cultivating timeless human qualities that resonate across any interface or communication medium. Now you possess something most people will never consciously learn: the complete map of the silent language that governs trust and human connection. But here's the question that will determine whether this knowledge will change your life or remain merely interesting information. Do you have the courage to start paying real attention to the signals you're sending and receiving? For the next 48 hours, I want you to try a simple but revolutionary experiment. In every meaningful interaction, devote some of your attention to observing not just what's being said, but how it's being said. Observe the body language of the people around you. Notice how they respond to your own nonverbal cues, and begin to consciously calibrate your presence. Who do you need to build more trust with? That professional situation where you feel like something is missing in your communication? This is your opportunity to apply these discoveries to a real-life situation and measure the results. And when you start to notice changes, when you notice people responding to you differently, opening up more, demonstrating more respect and trust, come back here and share your experience in the comments. What discovery about silent signals surprised you the most? How will you use this knowledge to transform your most important relationships? If this content has opened your eyes to the hidden power of nonverbal communication, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because mastering the silent language is just the first step to becoming truly influential and magnetic in all areas of life. Your most confident and connected self is waiting on the other side of this awareness. The question is whether you're ready to encounter it.